Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Bran and today we're going to be talking about Heartstopper. Heartstopper, as many of you know, was a webcomic series made by Alice Oseman which was later on translated into a Netflix show in 2022. As of right now, there is only 3 seasons and I plan on covering all 3 seasons, but I'm assuming you guys don't want to hear me yap for over an hour and I definitely don't want to edit a video that's over an hour long. So this video is only going to focus on Season 1. Season 1 covers the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And later on, the other volumes are covered, but as I said, this first season covers only Volume 1 and Volume 2. At the time of recording this, it has been over 2 years since the first season has released, so I think it's time to do a rewatch and see if it still holds up. This is my Heartstopper Season 1 retrospective. Episode 1 starts off with our main character, Charlie Spring, and he looks pretty happy. The show makes it seem like he's a very happy guy. Wait till Season 3. He's heading towards the library to meet up with his current situationship / DL guy, Ben. Fortunately, Ben stands him up. Red flag. Red flag number 1, by the way. And yes, we will be counting. After he gets stood up, Charlie goes to form, which I believe is their version of homeroom, I think, and gets seated next to rugby star and rugby king, Nick Nelson. And right off the bat, we can see that there's immense chemistry between them both. Sparks literally fly. Well, not sparks, more like the little leaves that float around, which also is a really nice touch. I really like the little animations that they use throughout the whole show. It just really connects it to the webcomic and just truly reminds you that this was originally a webcomic. A little bit later throughout the day, Charlie finally gets to meet up with Ben and they start making out. But right after they're done, Ben wipes his lips. He wipes his mouth. Red flag number 2, which, what the hell? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's very disrespectful. And besides that, he also forces Charlie to keep the relationship a secret, which is very detrimental to Charlie, but you know, he just rolls along with it because it's his first boyfriend. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't really know what's right and what's wrong. So he really does start to prioritize his boyfriend over his own mental health. Next, we're introduced to Charlie's friends, Tao and Isaac. And there's also a mention of Elle, which we will talk about later. Just give me a sec. As they're talking, Tao notices that Charlie could not take his eyes off of Nick. Tao points out that Charlie is looking at Nick as if he were the only man on Earth. And this is the first time that they refer to Nick as a golden retriever, which, by the way, is really true. I do think Nick Nelson is giving golden retriever core. Tao points out that Charlie maybe shouldn't have a crush on Nick, or maybe should try to keep those feelings hidden, because Nick is a straight boy. Therefore, Charlie will end up getting hurt later on. Tao points out that Charlie doesn't really know Nick, so how is it possible that he has a crush on him? Which later on, Charlie goes on to say they have been becoming a lot closer to each other because of form. Flashback to a scene where Nick's pen explodes all over him, and Charlie goes with him to the restroom to clean it off. This is where their friendship really starts. Tao warns Charlie to be careful, saying that Nick hangs out with a bunch of the guys that bullied Charlie last year. Which valid, because why would you hang out with losers? I don't know, that's his choice. Later on in the day, right before school ends, Charlie finds Ben making out with another girl. Charlie is surprised by this and thought that Ben was only seeing him, but apparently he's going out with other people, and didn't even bother telling Charlie otherwise. This causes Charlie to DM Ben later on in the night, telling him that they're over. Their situationship is done. Which, good for him. Like I said, Ben was a walking red flag. The sooner that ended, the better. On a different day, Charlie decides to take out his frustrations by running around the fields. Nick notices this and he sees that Charlie is actually a really fast runner, which causes him to think, hey, maybe he'd be a good fit for the rugby team. Later on, Nick goes to Charlie as he's putting away stuff in his locker, and he goes to ask him, hey, want to join the rugby team? Charlie, of course, was hoping for a different question. Charlie was hoping that maybe Nick would confess his feelings to him. But obviously, those feelings aren't really there yet. Or maybe they were and they're just hidden, and Nick doesn't understand them yet. Regardless, Charlie says yes, so because he sees this as an opportunity to spend more time with Nick. Tao warns Charlie and tells him to be careful because he shouldn't be making decisions just because he has a crush on Nick. He should really think it through and make an educated decision. Tao reminds him, hey, basically the whole rugby team is the same group of people that used to bully you before. Are you sure about this? Charlie obviously says yes because he likes Nick, which honestly, in high school, I would have done the same thing, so no judgment here. As Tao suggested, we overhear some of the rugby lads talking about Charlie, and they're not really excited about the idea that this gay boy is gonna join them in their team. But Charlie decides to suck it up and stay anyway. Which, you know what, takes guts, because if it were me, I would have ran away the second I heard them talking about me. But I digress. Nick realizes that Charlie may need a bit more help than he first anticipated, so he decides to train him one-on-one, which strengthens their bond even more. And I think this is when Nick actually starts to catch feelings for Charlie, which is proven by the fact that we see those little leaves floating around his head just the same way we saw those same leaves earlier in the episode when Charlie first saw Nick. After a couple of training sessions together, we see that Charlie is getting better, and Nick is enjoying his time with Charlie, which is a good thing. It would have been sad if he didn't. Anyway, after practice one day, Ben meets up with Charlie. Ben tries to talk to him, saying that, hey, I'm not ready to come out yet. But Charlie rebuttals and says, that's fine, I don't need you to come out, I just need you to be loyal to me and care about my feelings. Which is very valid. Both feelings should be respected here, but clearly Charlie's are not. But again, are we surprised? Like I said, Ben's a walking red flag. Charlie confronts him and tells him that he never really cared about his own feelings, he was only there when Ben wanted to kiss a boy. He never really thought to consider what Charlie wanted. Which Ben snaps back by saying, well, you know what, it's not like you have any other choice. He makes him feel like no one would ever love him. Which hurts, by the way. Oh my god, I could relate to that so much. I don't think that's a good thing. After that, Ben tries to forcefully kiss Charlie, and Charlie's just left there in shock, trying to push him off but can't really do anything. Luckily though, Nick steps in and pulls Ben off of Charlie and tells him to go away. In ruder words. Ben, in shock that someone saw him kiss Charlie, just runs off and doesn't apologize or doesn't say anything to both of them. Nick looks back at Charlie and asks him if he's okay. Charlie says yes, and he starts to apologize. And Nick tells him, no, don't apologize, this isn't your fault. Which, valid. Charlie was the one being assaulted, therefore he should not be the one to apologize. I feel like it's very obvious, but you know what, I'm gonna point it out anyway. After that, this is when Nick notices that Charlie says sorry a lot. It's as if he's just sorry to be there. And this is the first time that we see Nick tell Charlie that it's okay. You don't need to apologize. This isn't your fault. And this is also where we first see him tell Charlie to not apologize for anything. Unless he did something bad. Which, throughout the 3 seasons, he never really does anything bad, so... Anyway, we'll see. Also, side note, I think it's just really cute how Nick really does worry about Charlie, even in this early stage in their friendship where they're not even dating yet. This just shows how their friendship is something really special. Even if it didn't lead to anything, at least there's that. The episode ends by both of them going their own separate ways to their own homes, and they both seem very satisfied with having each other in their lives. Which, side note, before the episode ends, we see Charlie struggling to send a DM to Nick, wanting to thank him for stepping in. Which is really cute and also very relatable. I remember when I wanted to text a guy in high school, I just wouldn't, out of fear of what they would say, or the most likely outcome of them not responding. But Charlie sends it, and Nick receives a little thank you on his phone, which is a great way to end off the first episode. Episode 2 starts off with Nick just looking through Charlie's Insta, looking at all the pictures, laughing at some of them, having a great time, which is just so cute, by the way. However, one of his posts causes Nick to remember about the bullying that Charlie would go through and just endure throughout the last year. Just that, as a recap, Charlie was outed to the whole school the previous year. So obviously Nick remembering the pain Charlie went through didn't really make him feel good, which prompted him to check on Charlie to make sure that he's okay. In their DM conversation, Charlie starts to tell Nick about everything that happened with Ben. All the horrible things, how he forced him to keep them a secret, how he didn't care about his own feelings, all that we just went through in episode 1. Also, side note, as they're texting, we see the same amount of nervousness from Nick's side as we saw in last episode with Charlie, which I think is really cute. They're both really nervous to talk to each other, and they both want to make sure they say the right thing. So we get a couple things out of this conversation. For starters, we get the fact that Nick breaks off his friendship with Ben entirely because of what he did to Charlie. Good for him. And we also see Charlie thank Nick for listening to him, and he tells him, "Thank you for being a supportive, straight friend." Yeah, I see you, buddy. I see what you're trying to do there. You're trying to see if Nick's a little fruity. Well, not even he knows that yet, so you know what? Maybe just endure a bit more. Also, at the end of the conversation, Charlie sends Nick a little red heart, which is just so cute. And also, Charlie is so brave, I could never. Also, we see more of Elle in this episode. For those of you who don't know, Elle is trans and she recently moved from the all boys school to the all girls school, which is a lot better suited for her. So, good for her. However, moving to a new school means having literally no friends. I felt that here. Anyways, so in the next scene, we see Elle's teacher encourage her to make some friends and just tells her, you know what, just try talking to people. It's okay. It's not that hard. I beg to differ. She suggests talking to Tara and Darcy because they're very friendly and they would make great friends. I agree. And also, by the way, I love Tara and Darcy. Anyways, you'll see why. Later on in the episode, we see that Elle dropped her pencil case, which was nicely decorated with little flowers and stuff. And Tara notices this, so she picks it up and gives it back to her. In that moment, Tara sees that Elle is a very friendly person, so she tells her, "Hey, maybe you could join us for lunch." And Elle agrees and joins them for lunch later on in the day. Later on in the same day, we see Nick showing pictures of his dog, Nellie, to Charlie. And Charlie says that, "Oh, Nellie's so cute," which she is. Which prompts Nick to invite Charlie over to his house so he could properly meet her. To prep for their hangout, Charlie does go out and get a new haircut, which Nick does notice, which is just so cute. Notices the little things. He's a keeper for real. Anyways, so in their hangout, Charlie finally gets to meet Nellie, and they also just play Mario Kart, hang out together, have a great time. They both notice that it's snowing outside, so they both put on jackets on and go outside to play in the snow. Next plays out a really cute scene of them playing, all three of them playing in the snow. It's just really cute. We love to see it. And throughout all of this, Nick is taking a lot of pictures as if he doesn't ever want to forget this day. Remember those pictures, they come up later. Later on, once Charlie heads on home, Nick talks to his mom and his mom notices that him and Charlie are becoming pretty close. Even telling Nick that he seems more himself around Charlie. He seems more comfortable with him, which is really nice. Which also brings up the topic that Nick is the type of person to hide who he really is just to fit in. However, with Charlie, he doesn't have to do that, which further strengthens their relationship, I think. In a different day, Charlie tells Tao that him and Nick have been hanging out basically nonstop, and he thinks that Nick might like him back. But Tao has other news to tell him. Tao says that he's been doing some research on his own and found out that Nick might like Tara. Remember Elle's friend? Yeah, that Tara. Which really causes Charlie just to feel a bit sad. Which I understand completely. He was getting his hopes up just for them to be destroyed later on. However, like I said, this is just a theory. Nick might like Tara. It's not confirmed. So what they do is ask Elle to ask Tara if she likes him back. However, in doing so, Elle finds out that Tara doesn't like Nick because Tara is a lesbian. I didn't see it coming. Just kidding. We find out that Tara and Darcy are dating, which, just side note, I just think that Tara and Darcy are such a cute couple. I know they're not the main couple, but you know what? They might as well be. I love them both. Later on that same day, we see Nick go over to Charlie's house to hang out. And this is where we literally see the sparks fly. We see them play the drums together as Charlie tries to show Nick how to properly play the drums. Nick is clueless and has no clue how to do a proper beat. Sad. Just kidding. We see them watch a movie together, and right before he leaves, Nick tells Charlie that he looks very cuddly. A very straight thing to do. And then he hugs him. For like a long time, not just a dude bro hug. No, it's a full on hug. Fellas, do your bro homies give you that long of a hug without it meaning something else? I don't think so. Anyways, after that, Nick leaves kind of sort of confused. Tori, Charlie's older sister, notices this from afar and says, "Yeah, I don't think he's straight." Which, yeah, I could have told you that much. So they both head on to their rooms. Nick heads onto his room, Charlie heads onto his, and they both learn some valuable information. Charlie learns that there's no way that Tara will like Nick back because, she's a lesbian. It doesn't work that way. While on the other side, Nick learns that something's up. Something's not normal. He's looking at pictures through his phone. He realizes that, I really did have a good day with Charlie today. Charlie makes me feel other things, actually. What the is going on? So, this prompts Nick to open his laptop and type in the 3 famous words. Am I gay? We don't see the answer to that till next episode. But you know what? Very real, because I feel like everyone in the queer community has done that at least once. I did it twice in high school. And guess what the results were? Yeah. Very similar to Nick's. Except mine didn't say 62%, mine said 100%. Anyways, episode 3 picks off right where we left off, with Nick taking the Am I Gay quiz. The answer is yes. The quiz tells him that he's 62% homosexual. Which, what does that even mean? What do you mean 62%? To this day, I still don't know what that means. Anyways, this causes Nick to contemplate his entire existence, because his whole life he thought he was straight. Which, valid enough, I also thought I was straight up until I hit middle school and I realized, well, something's off. But yeah, anyway, he doesn't have too long to think about that, because in the next day, Harry invites him to his party. Harry being the typical bully kid in the whole school. No one likes him. So I don't know why he has friends. Anyways, Harry tells Nick that he can only go to his party if he brings a cool +1. Which prompts Imogen, one of Nick's best friends, to come over and ask if she could be his +1. Nick jokingly says, if you're cool enough. And she's like, oh, so do you think I'm not cool? So anyway, Nick decides, yes, Imogen could come to the party with me. Why not? We're friends. But this is where we also find out that Imogen kind of sort of has feelings for Nick. So she kind of sees this as a +1 invitation, as like a kind of sort of date. However, Nick does not see it like that whatsoever. Later on in the day, when Nick and Charlie are informed, Nick invites Charlie to Harry's party. Charlie is very hesitant about this, however, because Harry is one of the biggest bullies in the entire school, and he's one of the main reasons why Charlie got bullied to begin with. However, Nick tells him that it's fine, that he'll be with him, and he would really appreciate it if he came with him. So Charlie says yes. Later on in the day in the locker room, we hear a bunch of Nick's friends talking out loud about how Nick is gonna have his choice between 2 girls, Tara and Imogen. Which also, why are you guys talking about that out loud as if he wasn't there? And also, why are you treating these 2 women as if they're objects, as if they don't have a choice themselves? It really is giving teenage boys for real. Anyway, Nick kind of feels uncomfortable, especially since the person he actually does like, Charlie, is sitting right next to him. And he tells him basically to stop. It's not that serious, and at the end of the day, nothing is going to happen. Unless it's with Charlie. But you know what? He didn't say that part out loud. Like I said earlier, Charlie decides to go to the party. However, the same night the party took place is the same night that Tao had invited him over to watch a movie. It was supposed to be a whole group thing with him, with Tao, Charlie, Isaac, and Elle all watching a movie. However, Charlie feels bad and said that he already said yes to Nick and he doesn't want to let him down. So therefore, Tao was kind of hurt by this, which valid, priorities, right? Who are you going to prioritize? Your crush or your friends? I would have chosen my friends. Maybe that's why I'm still single. Charlie decides to go to the party while Tao, Elle, and Isaac end up watching the movie. But also, just kidding, turns out Isaac is really sick and couldn't end up going to the movie, so therefore it's just Tao and Elle. Which is fine. I think. I don't know, I guess we'll see. When Charlie gets to the party, we see that the place is huge. Like, literally, Harry is rich. Probably why the only reason people hang out with him. The place is full of loud people, and yet somehow Nick and Charlie still find each other. They're both really happy to see each other. Nick is really happy that Charlie decided to come with him, and they both just decide to hang out the whole night. On the other side of things, we see Tao and Elle watching their movie, but they also start talking about important stuff. Tao mentions how their friendship group is kind of sort of falling apart, and he's really scared to lose them all, and he basically makes Elle promise that no matter what, that they will always be friends. And Elle promises and tells him that there's nothing that will come between them. Which, you know what, is I understand Tao a lot here. When you're in high school, you just want the friendships to last forever, but unfortunately, that's not always how it goes. Thankfully, I have retained most of my high school friendships. We're still all like this. But that's not always the case. Usually after high school, people just drift off. So it's even worse to see your good friends drift off during high school, knowing that they're still right there and yet not really. I don't know. Anyways, back to the party. We see both Nick and Charlie talking to each other, and that's when Harry butts in. Harry starts to make fun of Nick, saying, "Oh my God, why have you not made a move on Imogen? Why have you not made a move on Tara? Come on, this is your big chance. Like, why aren't you doing anything?" Even though he's clearly uncomfortable every time he mentions these girls, and even though he clearly wants Charlie, read the room, buddy. It's very obvious. Please leave them alone. Harry tears Nick away from Charlie and pushes him towards Tara. And that's when Tara and Nick start to talk. And you may be wondering, oh my God, why are they pushing Nick and Tara so much? Like, we could see that Imogen likes Nick, but Tara doesn't really show any affection, so therefore, why are they pushing them both to each other? This is because they both kissed at a party a couple years ago, which apparently to them seals their fate as star-crossed lovers or something. I don't know. Nick and Tara start talking. Nick apologizes for his friends being very rude and pushy, and he tells her that he doesn't like her in that way. And Tara obviously says the same thing. And then Tara says things would be easier and people will leave her alone if people knew that she was a lesbian. Basically coming out to Nick, which is really cute. And that's when Tara also introduces Nick to her girlfriend, Darcy. Or I guess partner, not girlfriend. We'll talk about that in season 3, I'm sorry. We see Nick being very proud and very appreciative of Tara, and he's very happy that she was able to come out to him and that she trusted him with that information, even though she's not out entirely. And then this is when Nick tells her that he's only known one openly gay person before, Charlie. And then Tara asks, "Oh, are you guys good friends?" And Nick says, "Actually, I think he's my best friend." Best friend. Yeah, Tara knew from that moment that they were gonna end up together. Girlie knew. I think everyone knew at that point, except for the group of guys. Tara gets pulled out to the dance floor by her girlfriend. After Nick's conversation with Tara, we see him kind of start looking for Charlie, but this is where he runs into Harry first. Harry tells him what happened with Tara. Nick said, "Nothing. I don't want anything to happen. I'm looking for Charlie." This is when Harry starts to make fun of Charlie. He starts to ask Nick, "Oh my God, do you feel bad for him? Do you feel bad because he's gay? Do you think he has a crush on you?" Basically being extremely homophobic. And Nick calls him out on that, saying that he's homophobic and that he doesn't like Harry. Thank God, because you know what? Harry was starting to piss me off too. We see Charlie roaming around the second floor of the building, and this is where he bumps into Ben. Oh my God, why is he still here? I don't know. But he's not leaving anytime soon, unfortunately. Ben tries to talk to Charlie, tries to apologize one more time, but Charlie shoos him off, tells him to leave him alone, and just walks away. Which, good for him. Good for him. Like I said, Ben's a walking red flag. The further you get away from him, the better. Eventually, Nick finds Charlie and Nick asks, "Where'd you go? I couldn't find you." And Charlie says, "Oh, I just felt like I was in your way, so I just didn't want to bother you." Nick says that's crazy. No, basically confirms that no, Charlie isn't in the way, that he really wants to be with him instead. So after that, they both run off into a little room on the second floor where they're isolated from the rest of the party. And by saying that out loud, that kind of sounds gross and inappropriate. But no, nothing bad happens. In that room, Charlie asks Nick if he actually likes Tara, which he says no, obviously. And then Charlie asks, "Oh, do you have a crush on anyone at the moment?" Which Nick responds to yes. And then Charlie immediately assumes that he has a crush on a girl, so he asks him, "Oh, what's she like then?" And then Nick hits him with the iconic line, "Are you gonna assume they're a she?" Jaw dropped. My jaw actually dropped. This is when Charlie asks, "Would you go out with someone who wasn't a girl?" And then which Nick says, "I don't know, maybe." And then Charlie changes the question. "Would you kiss someone that wasn't a girl?" Nick is getting a bit more nervous, a bit more flustered. Then Charlie asks Nick if he would kiss him. Charlie, you are so brave. I wish I had that bravery in me. Maybe I would have gotten farther. I don't know. Nick says yes, and they both share their first kiss. And my God, is that majestic. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's perfect. Unfortunately, they get interrupted by Harry. Harry is looking for Nick, which prompts Nick to just run away startled. Nick running away really does leave a sour taste in Charlie's mouth, I would say. It made him think that he messed up, that he shouldn't have kissed Nick, that their friendship is basically over because now it's going to be awkward. So Charlie goes home. So Nick goes to find Harry, and Harry kind of gives a fake half-baked apology saying that, you know what, you're the one that's being in a mood, so therefore just calm down. And Nick rebuttals by also giving him a fake half-baked apology, saying that, you know what, maybe you're right, but you know what, I'm just gonna leave. This is when he runs back to the room, and he finds out that Charlie left. The next morning, Charlie checks his phone and sees that Nick didn't text him or didn't call him, and nothing. Which basically confirms the fact that Charlie did mess up. At least so he thought. However, as he's brushing his teeth, he hears a knock on the door. He goes to check who it is, and it's Nick. In the pouring rain, by the way, sorry. So Nick runs to Charlie's house, even though it's pouring rain, to talk to him. Which is just so cute, so romantic, but that's all we get in this episode. Episode 4 picks off right where we left off, with Nick in the rain coming to see Charlie, right? Nick apologizes for not having texted Charlie, saying that he'd rather talk about what happened yesterday in person. Charlie says it's okay, and they both go up to Charlie's room. Once they're both in his room, Charlie apologizes to Nick, saying that he feels like he did something wrong, that he should have never kissed him. He put him in a spot that made him uncomfortable, and he just feels really bad. However, Nick rebuttals this. Nick kisses Charlie first. Cinema. He kisses Charlie and then tells Charlie that he's sorry. He's sorry for running away and not actually talking about what happened. Instead, he just let him go. Nick tells him that he's having a proper full-on gay crisis, which iconic, by the way. He tells him that he's been really confused recently, doesn't really understand his own feelings, and that he just needs a minute to breathe. Which Charlie says, yes, of course, I'll be here with you and I'll help you through it. Because Charlie is a real one. We already know. Before he leaves, Nick tells Charlie to kind of keep them on the down low so no one finds out that they're kind of a thing. Just because he doesn't really understand his own feelings yet, and he wants to come out first before he comes out to the whole school and tells them who he is. Which is very valid, right? Because from this point forward, Nick has only known that he's queer for just a couple days. He doesn't really know how to label it yet. So it makes sense that he doesn't want to tell the whole school that him and Charlie are kind of figuring stuff out when he hasn't figured stuff out yet. So Nick leaves with an umbrella this time because he's already soaking wet. Before he gets far enough, Charlie goes and chases him and gives him a kiss, which is really cute. Now that is romantic. That was cinema. Anyway, later on in that week, we see Nick at school, and then Imogen points out that there's something different with him. She says that he's glowing, like something happened in his life. However, he doesn't tell her. He doesn't tell her anything, obviously, right? But we know what it is. We know. Anyway, later on in the day, we see both Nick and Charlie have lunch together in the art room. Nick tells Charlie how he is very different from his other friends, in the sense that Nick could actually be his true self around Charlie, which is something really nice, I would say. And it's something that Nick has desperately needed at this point. And it's right here when we see the big difference between both Nick and Ben. Even though both of them, at some point, kind of forced Charlie to keep their relationship a secret, Nick still cares about Charlie's feelings and is doing his best to figure himself out instead of just keeping Charlie on the sidelines. While Ben obviously never cared about Charlie and obviously didn't care about his feelings. So, Nick is 10 times better than Ben in every way possible. Later on in rugby practice, Charlie says that it's difficult to shine in rugby or in any sport for that matter because the whole school sees him as a typical gay boy. But the coach points out, hey, there's a bunch of gay people who are good at sports, so that is not an excuse to not try. Which is very valid. There are a bunch of gay people who are good at sports. However, Charlie and I are not one of them. Because of this, Charlie takes his time to train even harder by himself, just to make sure he becomes as good as he possibly can. Which is good for him. I'm glad he didn't give up. Even though there's a bunch of people giving him a hard time, he still chooses to become better. Anyways, on the other side of things, in the all-girls school, everyone's talking about Tara and Darcy's kiss. Imogen confronts Tara asking if she likes Nick, which Tara obviously says no, because she's a lesbian. I don't think people get that. I don't think people in this universe understand how lesbians work. Anyways, Imogen says she doesn't want to start anything. She just wants to make sure that Tara is not competition, but instead a friend. And also, this is when Imogen says her iconic line, "I'm not like homophobic, I'm an ally." Which she is, guys. She's just going through it. Let's give her some credit here. Just a little. Little. Also, I guess I forgot to talk about the kiss in the last the last section, so I'm gonna talk about it here. In the middle of the dance floor, we see both Tara and Darcy dancing with each other. They're being very cutesy, very romantic, but when the beat drops, they both kiss. And we see all the lights turn into a rainbow. I'm gonna put a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, that was cinema. That was perfectly shot. My jaw dropped. My life was complete in that moment. We see Nick observing them from afar, and he just gives them a big friendly smile. He's just very happy that they could both be with each other and be happy. And I'm pretty sure it also gives him hope that him and Charlie would one day be like that as well. That's supposed to be part of last clip, so I need to edit that into the next clip. Anyways, a couple days later, game day finally arrives, and we see the all boys school go up against, I believe they call it a sports division school. Basically, they're all highly trained athletes that basically are running on steroids. Yeah, for more support, all of Charlie's friends go to the game, and Tara and Darcy come along. And this is where Charlie officially meets Tara and Darcy. Darcy points out that him and Nick are looking kind of coupley. Looks like something's going on. Something fruity. Charlie says, "Whoa, no, there's nothing going on. What makes you think that?" And Darcy says, "Nothing but her gay intuition." Turns out her gay intuition is on spot. I wish my gay intuition was like that. It's usually wrong. Like I said, the other team is basically a highly trained league with adult men that are all on steroids. So basically, there's no chance of them winning. There's no chance of Nick and his team winning. The game doesn't go as planned, and Charlie unfortunately takes a huge hit in the middle of the game, which lands him right into the emergency room. Later on, Nick goes to check on Charlie in the infirmary to make sure that he's okay, make sure nothing's broken. Charlie's fine, just a couple of scratches. Nonetheless, Nick helps him out and starts cleaning him up because he's just full of dirt. He grabs a little damp towel and starts to wipe his face, which is just really cute. They're just having their moment, I guess. And in the middle of their moment, Isaac walks in. He clocked them real quick. He said, "Oh, they're together. They're a thing." But doesn't say anything though. He hands Charlie some wipes and then walks out. Nick is kind of like just caught by surprise, I guess. Doesn't really know what to think, what to feel. And Charlie confirms, "Hey, Isaac isn't like that. He won't tell anyone. I promise." And Nick says, "Okay, that's fine." And then Nick walks out. As Nick is leaving, all confused and bewildered, he runs into Imogen. And this is where Imogen asks him out. Yeah, apparently all the boys from the rugby team were encouraging her to ask Nick out because clearly she has a thing for him, and they think that Nick won't make a move because he's too much of a nice guy. Obviously, that's not the case. Anyway, Imogen asks Nick on a date, and Nick is just bewildered, doesn't really know what to say, but just out of pure pressure, Nick says yes. Which, my God, this is bad. So unfortunately for Nick, Tao and Elle witnessed the whole thing. So now they have to think of a way to tell Charlie that his crush is going out with someone else. Which really sucks, but they'll find out a way to do it eventually. Okay, so after editing half of this video, I realized that it's on the longer side, so I think what I'm gonna do is split it up into two parts. Nonetheless, thank you so much guys for watching this first part of my Heartstopper retrospective, and hopefully I'll see you soon. This is Bran, stay safe. Bye.